Welcome. If you've chosen this link, then you want to make a coaster. And so that's what we're going to get to. I'm going to walk you through all the tools that you'll need from the Creative Corner cart, and we're going to make our way on through it. Let's get started. So in the cart, you're going to find one of these blue kits. In it, you'll find all the tools that we're going to need for this. We have some snippers, the actual punch needle tool, a marker. In this paper here, you'll find the threader. If it's not in a paper anymore, then you will look for the piece of wire that is tabbed here. I'll pull it out here. So you're looking for this piece of wire, that's our threader. We also have some embroidery needles and some additional tips or additional tips for our adjustable punch needle tool. We won't need those today. You should find that the head that is inside of the tool already is the one that you're going to need. Moving on, we have a backing for our coaster, which we're going to attach at the very end. And then we have yarn, so you'll choose a color scheme, and we'll be ready to get started. So let's do it. Very first, we're going to have you, also what you're going to need, lastly, you're going to need one of the stencils or some work. You can also hand draw this. As you can see, I've already traced mine, but I wanted to show you kind of like what's in the cart there for you to choose from. There are some blank ones if you feel like you absolutely need a stencil, but if you don't, use it for the round shape and design your own. So this is pretty tight, but if you get it and it seems like it's a little loose, then all you really need to do is just pull the ends of the fabric to tighten it, but they should already be ready to go, okay? So let's move on to threading our tool. So we have a traditional punch needle tool, and it has an opening that goes all the way through the handle to the tip. This is adjustable, and in exchange, you can change it out for smaller or bigger heads. This one is going to be perfect for this project, and I've done my best to tighten it for you. So to get threaded, we're going to take our threader here, and we're going to go inside of the needle end, okay? I like to take it up through this hole at the bottom here, and then just push it through the main hole there. So out the other ends, we will then grab our yarn. I'm going to be starting with this pretty purple. So we are going to go through and then simply pull the yarn all the way through the tool. Unthread from the metal wire and adjust the tail. So with this, you only really need a small tail. You don't need much else. I'm going to make sure to pull out some slack for my yarn. That's going to be one of your biggest tips here, is to keep some slack in that yarn, or else you'll pull your stitches out. One of the other tips that we're going to talk about is how to actually punch. So before we get started on the project, we'll talk a little bit about kind of like how to make some consistent punches. So when I punch down into my ring, I'm going to make sure to push all the way down till I can't push anymore, okay? And then when I come up, I'm only going to come up just above the fabric here, and I'm going to punch down again, okay? That's your punch motion, being sure to punch down all the way each time and trying to stay consistent with the length of your stitches, okay? It looks like this might be a little short. My yarn might be a little short, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to loosen this and adjust my needle a little bit. And to do that, all I did was loosen this head here. And then now I'll retighten it. All right. And then I'm gonna go again to see if I like what I get. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's more like it. I like a more fluffy stitch. So you're welcome to go shorter if you like. For this project, I'm gonna keep it fairly long. So that's that. If you mess up, you can simply pull back your stitches. And then you'll see that it does leave some like spaces in your canvas. So you can actually just pull them back and kind of pull them back into place with the tip of your tool here. All right, so the three things, punch down all the way to the tip, to the end of the tip, leave slack in your yarn, and you're going to keep this open scoop pointed in the direction that you are moving. So scoop is open towards my left, so I'll punch that way. If I want to turn, then I'm going to turn the scoop towards the way that I'm punching. Okay. All right, I think that's everything. So let's get started. So I'm going to do my flower petals, this purple color. And one thing that I do advise when you're doing this is to, when you're outlining a section, well, first to outline the section, to create a boundary between this color and the color that you're going to put in the background. And then when the outline is being made, I like to do tighter punches, tighter stitches. It just feels like it, like I said, creates a good boundary, a good border between the colors. And you'll see why that's important, or why that's helpful towards the end of this. So I'm just going along, punching, following my pattern. So punch needling is almost equivalent to rug tufting, but you're doing it with a hand tool. And the difference is that the loops that you get on the back end when tufting are typically, especially when you use a gun or something like that, a automatic tool, then they are clipping the loops from the other end. So this one keeps loops, and you have the option obviously to trim them if it suits your project. So right now we're working the back of the project. And I'm just going to keep turning my work to accommodate the direction. It's a little easier on the wrist than turning the tool as much. I want to trim this out of the way for a little bit so you can see a little better. And with this, one thing you want to consider when you're punching is that this tool is going all the way through this fabric to the back. So your workspace should accommodate that. I like to just hold my piece of work at an angle like this to give me some space in the back so where I'm not hitting the surface and I'm not punching myself in my lap or anything like that. I love this activity. It's so calming. And when I'm sitting at home and I just need a moment, rather than just scrolling or doing some random thing, I like to just pick up one of these projects. Just gonna keep punching here to finish up our outline. Then I'll show you a little bit about punching, directions, and things like that. All right, I'm probably gonna go ahead and do an outline on the outside of the inner circle, even though it'll be a different color. I'm just gonna go ahead and close some of these petals up. Now, in some tutorials, you'll find that they give you a gauge on the length of your stitches, which is important for a lot of projects. I haven't found that any of the stencils that we're using here requires for you to count any stitches or anything like that. So, you know, I figure we won't even bother with all of that. So inside of these, I'm gonna fill in. I like to kind of go in a circular motion. Something that I want to point out now is the spacing. You don't have to go right up against the next stitch, okay? You can kind of give it some space. I like the way the back looks when there's no white spaces, so that's kind of just a me thing. The back is going to be covered anyway, so it's kind of pointless. But the reason I say this is because it does affect the fullness and density on the front of your coaster. So we are working the back of the coaster right now. And I'll show you after I finish this petal kind of what we've been accomplishing here. Notice I'm just turning my work to accommodate the task of filling up the spaces. And for the sake of this, I'll go ahead and pull this out of here and trim. So yeah. So typically, you know, originally you saw me cutting each thread, but you don't necessarily have to. You can just go ahead and pull over to the next one. At this point, you're probably pretty comfortable in the process. So I'll just throw this in there that if your stitches are coming out behind you, check the tension, and then also check that your needle point of your tool is secured, because if it is not tight or slipping around, then it can cause that can be another cause for your yarn to not be staying in place. You'll see that I'm using my thumbnail to hold down that thread so that I don't pull up my stitches from the previous petal. And these are no matter which project you pick up regarding punch needle, whichever stencil you use, I mean, you'll be able to use some of these tips and tricks to work through, to get through it. All right, so that's the end of our purple color. I'm simply going to trim that down, de-thread, get ready to thread our next color. Remember, I'm going to go through the bottom hole, through the bottom hole, down the barrel, out the other ends. And next, I'm going to be working with this yellow color. And I'm going to thread the tail of that in there, pull through, and release it from this metal threader. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare me some yarn here. I'm only doing this in the center. Right now we have this very dense flower that we're going to give more shape as we come in and do the outer side, or the, the background. Now, bringing this color into the middle, I'm going to try to leave a little space between my line that I'm creating and the outline that's already there from the purple color. Meaning I'm going to do my best not to go into any of those same holes, to where we don't tangle our loops on the underside if you go too close. Now, that's not an issue. You can fix it, but the least amount of fixing up you have to do, you know, the better. So let's see. And because our loops, I made my loops a little longer, the likelihood of mixing them and getting them tangled is even higher. So. See how I pushed it through the same thing? So this is also something you want to pay attention to. I pushed it through the same thing, so then I caught onto another stitch. Let's see if I need to remove it. So pull that out a little bit. There we go. And sometimes it is necessary so that you can achieve the look that you're going for. So, there we go. so we are done with that color. And we're just gonna move it to the side. Our background is gonna be this tan color, but before we move on to that, I wanna go show you what I was talking about, cleaning up the stitches. So sometimes the stitches come down a little bit, get mixed in with each other. So you'll have to do a little bit of surgery, just guiding them. Sometimes literally unhooking them from one another. Right, so now we're gonna go in and help define some of these petals by closing up our background. There is some cleanup work we could do right now, which is totally up to you when you get to this point, but doesn't hurt. Some of my loops are a little longer. And again, that would be just from consistency of pushing that tool all the way down in to the to the canvas. Excuse me. All right, so now we can go and create an outline and finish up the background. All right, last time we're gonna go up close and we're gonna pass through that hole all the way down through the barrel. And pull. All right, so two things. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my outer circle, and then I'm gonna come in and do a circle on the inside. And for this, we're gonna pay attention to give it a little space because our loops are longer. So just to get our outline done. And this is the very edge of your project, so it's important to kind of get them tight the way you want them. And this will matter when we go to finish the project or close up the project. Now, if you're sitting in one of the creative corners, you may or may not have the tools to finish this, the products to finish this, based on what was acceptable in that specific space. But you do have the option to label your work and leave behind your contact information, because those creative corners are monitored weekly and we pick up any projects that need our finishing. and we will gladly get the project to you after it's done. I'm going to go ahead and trim this. Because I want to do that very focused stitch around the edge of the flower. Now you can feel your loops in the back, so at this point you can kind of push them out of the way as you're going so that you have kind of some sort of a guide, but I'll be very careful because these things are fairly sharp. So I'm just pulling that back so that I don't hit those loops. And the goal of this is to make that distinction between the colors once again. There we go. Some of the spaces you might have to get down in there to make it happen, just to make the definition for your shapes take place. Again, I'm just pushing back those edges. Yeah, so the outline is coming together quite lovely. You know, and just trust the process because it's going to come together and fill in. So now I'm going to kind of create like a, kind of do like a back and forth thing. All right, so we're just, at this point, you're in the groove. You are seeing the finish line because now you got the motions down. And I just wanted to take this moment to check in and see where you are enjoying this activity today. Put it in the comment section below where you found the project and where you're creating from. These tutorials and sessions are kind of intimate because it's just me and you. These links are private. So Right, these are the last few punches, and we will close it up. All right, so let's do some cleanup real quick. All right, so now we've finished all of the punching. So cute. So cutesy. Okay, so now that we're finished, we have this. You can leave this. This is pretty clean, but if you're like me, you can trim it down and more because that's just so aesthetically pleasing to see those stitches. Right, now finishing up. So for finishing it up, I'm gonna go ahead and get my hot glue gun set up. And I'm gonna set it to the side to get ready while I prep while we release this from its situation. I'm gonna need my tools. I'm gonna need to release this using my tools. Okay. If you're doing this yourself at the space, then you're gonna just release that there. I have tons of extra, but your preset one won't have as much extra. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim this down to about 1/2 inch past the edge. All the way around. Got kind of close in some of those spots, but it's okay. So next, you're going to make some slits. Being careful not to cut your ends, but you are gonna make this a little easier on yourself by making some slits here. You don't have to do them super close. It's just so that we can close up, so that we can fold these ends over to secure our work. All right, that should do it. Now, I'm just gonna get this little tool. It's not what it's for, but I need something other than my fingers. And we're going to place hot glue around the outer edge. You don't really need a super lot. Don't be like me overusing. Ouch, I already did it. The glue is super high. This is one reason why this won't be in every space. And the option will be to leave your work for finishing with your name and a contact. But as you can see, I'm just pressing in those ends, letting them get tacked down with that glue. All right, and then lastly, we're gonna take our pre-cut backing and you might need to trim it up accordingly. I think that should go pretty well. So now I'm gonna add more glue here. All right, now you have a nice coaster to take home and be proud of. Yep, there you go. I'm done.